Well, it is 1 minute to the start time at 3 p.m. and this is the webinar. And here is Maria. This is the webinar for the Super Happy Body Business Builder. And the Business Builder uses the same program as the Super Happy Body program to help you with a very structured approach, build an online business or expand your online business or build a business while you also are getting out of chronic diseases. So that's what this seminar is all about. And this time I am not going to forget to record. I am recording and I'm glad you are here or watching this later so that you can learn how we do that and how we accomplish that. And now I'm welcoming the people who are in here. So far it's Maria. Do you want to say hello? Unmute yourself and say hello.
Hi.
Hi, Maria. Thank you for being here. And do you want to quickly pose your main question or your main reason for being here?
I'm interested in converting what was once an in-person business into an online business.
Excellent. Exactly what we're doing here, because unfortunately, that's what everybody now has to do. But luckily, 5-6 years ago, I took a course, which is now 3 times more expensive, in how to do that. And I actually learned from the company that is the most effective and most successful on the globe in building reliable income with an online coaching, teaching, selling business that works. So you're in the right place, I hope. So yeah, and at the same time, this method emphasizes a communal approach so that the entire community supports each other. The clients support each other. They bond. They often share their networks, their expertise, etc. So it is also a beautiful place to build international connections. And that's, again, that's part of the business model, that the future is in collaboration and connectivity as opposed to competition and elbowing one's way into a niche business, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's exactly the point. And therefore, I want to lay it out here and we'll see. I mean, yesterday, everybody joined late and it just kept going on and growing for half an hour, the webinar. So maybe it'll do that today, maybe not. I actually didn't put out a last minute invite. So it could just be that we have the time, Maria, to answer all your questions and lay it out as I'm laying out the basic structure of what it is that I do to achieve these highly successful clients that actually establish their own business and are financially liquid at the end of the program or even just a few weeks into the program, which is often the stumbling block. Many people, when starting to invest in a program or when starting to want to build a business, don't have the startup funds, because investors always say, well, once you're running a little bit, then we're going to be looking into giving you X amount of dollars, but it has to be, the company has to already be worth whatever, 100,000 or 200,000, or some will say $250,000 or $1 million. So, and with online coaching and especially with solopreneurs, that's not the case easily, especially in the beginning. So we don't have companies that have those values, because we're literally operating out of our living rooms or out of our, I'm sitting in a little office here in my house that that provides enough space and enough connectivity and even space for assistants to be here, but it's not the office building my business kind of model, right? And because we all have to go online, that needs to be in a structured manner to be successful. Because if we're just fumbling there, like, and I just want to establish for a minute who I am and what I do, and then I go into, you know, why this model is more successful than others. And that is, I am Professor Johanna Sophia, actually professor not of business, not of even food, because my company is Johanna's Raw Foods and Coaching, but I'm a professor of film, and I actually professed, you know, so often people say to me at conferences something, well, where do you profess, professor? And I've taught at Columbia University School of Visual Arts, Yale University, and City College, and several others as an adjunct over the years. But I also have had my own school for drama and dance, because my first career was actually in entertainment, i.e. acting, singing. I was singing on stage, and then acting in movies, mostly in Europe. And then I had my own school for drama and dance in Africa, in Zimbabwe, because I lived in Zimbabwe for almost 5 years right after independence there. And so I learned a lot about how the world works and how the economy and businesses and finances work, and how health works or doesn't, with the chemical pollution of the planet, et cetera, that you see particularly blatantly when you live in a so-called third world country, meaning that it's a former colony and has been deprived of its own resources and land, and everything is owned, even today, by the neo-colonialist corporate interests that have remained in most countries that formerly were colonized by Europeans in particular. So, and of course, the US has done something similar in Latin America to a certain extent. So we have kept those countries in submission to our economic interests. Let's just put it simply like that. So I was very much looking into what does it take for a human being today to raise consciousness to the level of, I can look after my own health, I can look after my own well-being, I can build business within the structures that are available. Unfortunately, I can't build something completely different, but I can build I was going to say humanitarian, but it's not really, because that's also like almost like a religion, and that's not what I mean. I just mean a positive, loving, forward-thinking business with the tools available today, kind of in spite of the corporate world, or using some of the corporate monies to build something different, something better. And of course, you know, that money is neutral, if you will. So if we take some of that money and put it into better causes, that to me seems to be a worthwhile effort, if we already know why we're doing those causes, if we have a mission to improve humanity, to improve and level up equality, equity, equal rights, etc., civil rights, and at the same time improve our physical well-being and our understanding of how biology really works. I think that a lot of what we have today in the science that we all believe like it were the next big religion, there is a lot of conflict of interest providing that particular science, so that we have not really an open forum to discuss and step back and look at, well, how does biology on planet Earth actually work? How does economy on planet Earth actually work right now globally? How do people shift ownership of things, of assets? You know, and today, of course, assets are also people and people's needs, people's consumer needs, and or perceived consumer needs, if you will, invented consumer needs even. So we can impact all that by creating businesses that are helpful and that are empowering to our customers and our clients, as opposed to that are exploiting our customers and clients. So that's where I come from. And the modalities, the tools to build clientele, for example, or a customer base or a community, if you will, around issues, depending on what your mission, what your business is. If we now, just for the simplicity's sake, call everything we do our business, okay? All of that needs the tools that are available to build and sustain itself and grow, because the more we grow, the more we can actually serve our communities, our clients, or our customers. And to accomplish that, I have, after having a food company, after being a professor, and then after working for an international law firm where I learned a lot about the global businesses because I translated those documents. I happen to be able to do 5 languages, so I was able to translate a lot of those documents that international legal firms deal with, patents and logbooks and pharmaceutical deals and weapons deals and agribusiness deals, etc. So therefore, I have an insight from that angle as well into what's going on. And I understand that we can use some of the tools, especially the online tools, as we now have to in this restricted world, to our benefit, and also help ourselves and our peers and our wannabe peers to grow. So when I'm saying I'm helping you build an online business, I am hoping to empower you to make your business grow so that it empowers, again, others, so that there is a literal, what do you call that, a multiplier energy that goes out into the world, spreading our businesses further and further, and spreading consciousness, spreading the industries that promote that more equitable world and society as a whole. So how it works is that in our business model, and Maria, this is for you, and so far we have not had anybody else join us. Interesting, and 10 people registered, but 1 person is here. So we shall use this model, and I will talk to you in particular a little bit later. So how this business model works is that it first creates connection in your industry and a customer base. So, or a client base, a potential client base. And that works by exposing yourself to experts around the globe or in your area. Maybe it's a local business, maybe it's an international business, maybe it's a language-based business, so it only talks to people in your language. Maybe it's a multi-tier business, but it creates at first an online followership, if you will, or an online community via staging online events together with or interviewing or discussing other experts in your field or in related fields, and allowing them to partake and inviting their constituents also to your event. And therefore you are growing your online community exponentially in this manner. No other method can do that. Facebook ads or expensive ways of using social media have not been shown to have a similar effect or even coming close to the similar effect. Building your email list. So everything is around building your email list and using online platforms to communicate valuable information with your email list, and allowing your email list to be empowered and wanting to, again, come into their own power and into their own authenticity, following their own mission, using the skills and or the teachings that you share and or the tools or goods that you may share in your business. So I am using for my business teaching model the same model that I'm using for my health. I'm just assigning different words to the system called the Evolve system, or JRF Evolve system, Johanna's Raw Foods Evolve system. It doesn't mean that you have to do anything with raw food, but it does sort of anticipate that you have a super happy body, that you have a healthy body. And of course, if your goal is to also become healthy while building a business, then we need to sort of double up, and it requires extra focus and extra time availability on your part to do both at the same time. But it can be done. It absolutely can be done, that you're building a business, gaining income very quickly through these online modalities, at the same time also following the Evolve system, the healing protocol. So in the Business Builder protocol, E stands for establish your name for your first online event and your banner. So if you don't have a company name yet, of course, that can be discussed at that stage as well. But it is assumed that you have a name, or we'll discuss that as well. And you're establishing your first online event by creating a name for it. For example, my last large summit that I ran last summer was Happy Body, Happy Planet. And it included experts from literally all over the globe, from all continents. Some of you may have been on it, or may have been listening to some of the interviews with world-renowned speakers. And so you establish the name of your first large event. You invite the guests that you want to speak to or that you want to share the event with. There are different models that you can use. And the next step is V stands for verify the interest of audiences in the topics by picking the experts and understanding from them what their audiences want. So verify the interest in the topic. Sometimes we have to still tweak the topic of your event, and then interview your experts under that topic, and you've created a banner and like almost like a logo just for that particular event that will show up everywhere in your promotion of that event when we get to that point. So you record the interviews and make contractual agreements with everybody so that you have the rights to those interviews. Or if it's not interviews, if it's panel discussions, or if it is other ways that you bring people together. And that there's various models of doing that. So that by the time this event has taken place, it can be live online or it can be pre-recorded and then presented online. By the time that is done, you have grown a community. If you didn't have an email list before, maybe you had just 100 people in there, or a few hundred. By the time you've done this first event, you will have quadrupled or more. You have gained maybe 1,000 new members on your email list or more. I mean, some people, depending on the size of the event and on the reach of your collaborators that you are able to invite into the event, your list can grow by multiple thousands. So next would be the O, overcoming the obstacles. And that inevitably comes up for all of us again and again and again. How do we get into the mindset of inviting our list, our newly achieved larger list, into a program or a sales modality that we have? And the most rewarding is always a longer program or a pre-purchase where you buy something monthly, or so if it's a product that you're selling. So the concepts are to now invite those who are looking for what you have to offer into your business. And yes, of course, you won't invite all 1,000, 2,000, or 3,000 people into everything that you do because they just came for this event. But many will want to stay, and some will be interested in what you have to offer. And the obstacles are always in the mindset, in the inhibitions that we have that have been trained into us to want to sell, to be salesy, or to feeling embarrassed about inviting people into our programs, etc. Because we have the imposter syndrome, all of us, even the biggest experts in the world. And overcoming that and transforming that into understanding that it is us who help others get out of their limitations into the greater good, into the spreading the news and the awareness. Somebody making incredible noise out there with a go-kart, I apologize. So that's the obstacle part for most people, not for all, but for most. And then it is about creating the program or the sales concepts of products, or for some people it is creating the product itself, because you may not have it at the moment and you may still be looking for that mission. And it sometimes comes about as you're interviewing all these people that you think are in the arena that interests you to go into, and suddenly it will emerge, it will crystallize what you want to and can do, what is your expertise in the world, or at least for the next phase, what you really want to focus on and go into. So that's the overcoming the obstacle parts. And then we get to the great part of things. Then you have your clients, and if it's just a few in the beginning, that's great, that's fine. Then you get to love your clients. And we as coaches or as world improvers, I don't know how else to say it right now. So then you get to love your clients or your customers. You get to love the heck out of them, to service and serve them with your best. And that's going to make everybody really, really happy. And with that service and with that loving the heck out of your clients. And I also want to quickly emphasize here that as coaches or businesses of natural or positive or modalities of healing or sharing or education or even construction, that is green construction, etc., of people who want to make the world a better place, is always incredibly rewarding. It is just so wonderful. So you get to experience that, loving what you do and allowing your clients to learn to really love what they do, and sharing those impulses and those, sharing that knowledge. So with that we come to the next V, and that's the validity of you as expert has been improved or established at a different level in the world, because you have done this event and you have gained these customers and you have gained self-respect and you have gained leadership. And while I am for collaboration, it still takes leadership of, even if it's just leadership in your own self. You know, we used to call it discipline, but it has too much of a military tone to it. So leadership in my own life, leading my own life, is a much better word than discipline, I think. Of course, we do need to have the focus and ability to show up. You know, when I say I am running a webinar, I show up, whether there's 100 people or whether there's one person or whether there's 0 persons, I show up, because that is my duty and that is my discipline, yeah, or that is my leadership. Again, leadership is a much better term. So I have established, with even just the first of these online events, and you can do many in a row and build and build and build, exponentially or just step by step, we have at the same time attained recognition in our field, because we have been associated with these people who are further ahead than ourselves, because we have organized those online events. And therefore we automatically rank up, if you will, if we talk in ranks, but we have gained, what's the word I'm looking for? We have gained visibility in the world. We have gained recognition. It doesn't have to be fame at all. It's just that more people will know about us and more people will appreciate what we have to offer and who we are as a human being, and what we do contributing to the business world of tomorrow. So the validity of self and the expertise that we add to the grand
Hey, Johanna, suddenly I can't hear you anymore.
Maria, you have a question?
Oh, your voice disappeared for a second. You were mute for a moment.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No worries.
Wait, where did I go out?
So the last thing that I caught was how like collaborating with people gives you recognition and visibility. It ups your credentials, your self-worth, showing up. Yes.
So with the validity, with the second V of the evolved system, your validity, your value, your expertise has been established more so than it was before the event, and with every event that can grow further. That is the idea, and that is the fact that I have so many colleagues of mine who are actually in the million-dollar businesses now. That doesn't mean that they personally make millions. It just means that their business and their staff and their reach has grown to what we call a million-dollar business or more. And that has all been achieved with this system. And while I'm not at a million, and I don't know whether I'll ever be, I am very happy with the fact that it works and that it does exactly what you want it to do. If that is what you want to do, to reach more people, to help more people in their life and business themselves, if that's what you teach. And last but not least, the second E stands for establish your brand, so that your name, the name of your company or the name of your person, because many solopreneurs, as we call ourselves when we are working just on our name. I had and still have, and I'm building a new factory for a food business. So that's Johanna's Raw Foods and Coaching. So therefore I have a more brick and mortar business also, if you will. But many of my colleagues have just an online coaching, teaching, educating business, from hypnotherapy to business coaching, brand coaching, media coaching, etc. So many different variations, mindset, spirituality, food, self-healing, etc. And of course, I focus on self-healing using food and other modalities. And I also focus on this business building, because I think we all need that. I have known too many people who have brilliant ideas and brilliant products and services, if you will, but don't know how to spread them, especially now that the brick and mortar is kind of taken away from us in so many ways. Of course, food production is still needed and will be, because we all do need to eat, never mind what's going on out there. So that's a relatively safe industry. But yeah, many of our modalities, many of our businesses can be taken online, and or a combination of online spreading and then in real life presenting. I'm just thinking of a massage therapist who's also working with me, who of course still needs to go and put their hands on somebody, but with a larger community can make those appointments and have even regionally go out to say, okay, next week I will be in X region and I will be serving one at a time, so many people. So that can be done with an online modality. So establishing your brand so that your name or your brand name become a name that people know, and a go-to and a logo that is recognizable and can stay for many years, because that also is very important. The famous example being the Coca-Cola logo. It just is an imprint in our memory. When we hear a certain name, we see that visual that goes with that name. And that's what logos and brand names and certain other things that go with brand establishment. And while I'm not a branding expert, but that's something that at that time you will seek branding experts, or you will just come up with your own and use the online modalities available, maybe Fiverr or Canva, or etc., where you can get help for relatively little money or no money to help you with those items that everybody does need to establish brand recognition. All right, so we have the Evolve System Business Builder, in a nutshell, and of course there's so much more to it, but I also don't want to overwhelm you because these are all steps that are very logically established, and you'll be told at every step what's next. And my business coach always said, and still says to this day, you know, stay in the step you're in, otherwise you'll get overwhelmed. So it's first you do this, and then you do that, and then you do da 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 da. And every step is kind of logical and doable. But if you think of all of it, it may get completely overwhelming. All right. So does that make sense, Maria?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially that last bit about, you know, staying step by step to avoid getting overwhelmed, which I find I often am looking so much at the big picture that I feel almost pressured by the details because I want to get to the final result before I can even begin.
Yeah. Yes, and that of course is daunting, and therefore it helps so much to be in a group. And I also work with, if there are more than 3 people in a given class, we actually use pods, as that is now called. It's a new thing in business building, of 3, so that 3 or maximum 4 people are in a pod together, checking up on each other, accountability checking and helping each other out. And then the pods get together once a week in a larger group and discuss what they come up with, or if they have questions, or ask for other people's opinions on, you know, is this title line better than that or than the other? What do you guys think? And there's always the input of others helps us a lot to get clear, and then just say, okay, I'm going with this now, boom, and then it's the next step. So yeah, that helps a lot to have that that step-by-step program, but also the support system, because there will be times where we get overwhelmed. And again, you know, all my coaches would always say that there are times where, you know, somebody in the family dies, or we have something happen in our to our house, you know, there's a storm, or there's a, you know, all these things happen. Life happens. But when you have a system, you can find solutions and continue anyway. Because there's no such thing as a life that doesn't have things happen. So therefore, again, the system helps to stay on track and not fall off. And sometimes there will be times where we are, our example was always sitting in the bathroom crying, you know, because, oh, I couldn't get this done, or I failed, and, you know, I only got 2 people, or I got nobody, or it will happen. And that's perfectly okay. Because, yeah, life happens, and sometimes we do get overwhelmed. But because there is a system, and because there is a support system and a structure, and then there are also individual calls with me or another expert coach that I work with, there's always somebody to turn to who will have quick solutions to the problem that you may be facing. Yeah, so that while sometimes our dream has to be adjusted, most of the time it's just a matter of pursuing step by step, and we will get there. I mean, if I set out, we also don't make unreasonable expectations. You know, I'm not saying I'm going to make 10 million this time next year. That's unreasonable, because building of any business is in most cases a slow process. You know, unless I'm able to, whatever, take advantage of some fluke in the industry or in the world or something, you know, of course, like right now, somebody who suddenly could make millions of masks would have a super booster in their business because everybody needs to wear masks suddenly. So those are the opportunities that some people are able to exploit. And not that I'm promoting masks, actually, but anyway, I think it's a crazy idea. But yeah, But those opportunities arise and work for some people to suddenly make a lot of money, but that's not the norm. The norm is to build and expand that community and grow what is called growing organically or naturally. But securely, because the more often you have those online events that people from around the globe or from your industry or from your community can come to and want to come to, the more you can grow your connection, your community, your tribe, whatever you want to call it, that loves what you have to offer. Maria, do you want to tell us a little bit what it is that what's your dream?
Oh, I have a lot of dreams, but the business reason why I was interested in today was so over a year ago I started an event business, a very small, very private, exclusive event business, and it centers around elevating people's positive emotions while also indulging heavily in very decadent vegan food.
Yeah, awesome. I love it. I want to come.
You probably would have a great time. It's a really good time. So what I will hide, or what I was doing was I was doing a lot of guerrilla marketing. I don't do any social media because of the nature of the event is it's very private, and a lot of people that I've met in different jobs over the years really value their privacy. And through the nature of the activities that we do in these events, a lot of emotions get very raw and people reveal things about themselves. So in a similar way that when you go to say like an AA meeting,
yes,
confidentiality is.
Yeah, but you'd be surprised that all the good events that I have gone to, business events, sometimes with thousands of people, that were in my community around hardcore business is where I studied, had those deep, deep moments. Of course, you see it on Tony Robbins as well, when your raw emotions are touched, but you come out of these, especially when, contrary to Tony Robbins, what I learned is to immediately focus those energies on self-empowerment. So, and in my training, again, in the emotional training, there's a step called transform your traumas into tools. So when you go to those places, I have that same experience. So I'm just saying that today, almost every successful business training also allows people to go through those experiences. That's beautiful, yes, and powerful. So,
yeah, we had a really good time with it when it was happening, but then COVID hit and that just squashed it, because you can't be alone in a room having an intimate like feast with people and doing all of these different activities. I mean, it's just an impossible thing to do now. So I've been trying to figure out a way to create that community and that intimacy, even though we're not going to be breaking bread together, so to speak. And it's been really challenging, especially because, like you were saying before, life happens. And so my husband, my very sweet, awesome husband, is going through a very serious medical situation right now. So a lot of my attention has been, placed on getting him better. And that's also made it difficult for me to divide my attention to, this business child that I've created. So I've been just checking out different people. I've seen a bunch of your webinars, like when you did those interviews with all of those wonderful people all around the globe, when it was the raw health. I think that was just fantastic, and I got a lot out of it. So yeah, I mean, I've been checking out webinars with the Queens Public Library and the Brooklyn Public Library and, all these different places, just to see where inspiration draws from so that I can go back to creating these really cool events, even if they have to be online and we're not stuffing our faces, which was one of the main focuses of these events, was to just feast together. So,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
so it's a little challenging right now.
Right. Here's what comes to mind immediately. And that is, use this time to build that online community, to have a broader reach. So as soon as we can, even if it has to be in different countries, which is what some people are doing already, we may be able to gather and do these events. But at the time that we need to sit at home, that's exactly the time to use for building that online, for growing that online community. And over, you know, to create one of those events like the one you watched in the summer, Happy Body, Happy Planet, takes at least 3 months to build that up and go through with it, and then afterwards create the individual consultations and then the group events as the icing on the cake after the individual consultations. I think that could be a model that could work for you. Because in individual consultations, we can get to that rawness. At least I'm always able to go with my individual clients to those places. It is much more draining and less effective. And I mean, I love it, but I also know how tired I am, you know, when I do this for just one person. But it's the kind of work that can be very rewarding with individuals, and then as the super event bonus, create those live events, maybe in countries that are a little more welcoming to such in-person events. And the other thing I wanted to say is, of course, that please do connect with me individually if you would like help, if I can be helpful with your husband.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, his condition's a little strange. It's very rare. It's more the cartilage detached itself from his rib cage, and that normally doesn't happen to anybody. This is what makes it tough. There's only one surgeon in the entire country that can help him now. He had a surgery last year. The guy just didn't really do everything that we think he should have. So we're going with the guy that we were originally going to use. He's in Georgia and we're in Queens. So we have to fly to Atlanta next week. And that's definitely got me concerned, you know, because of COVID. But, you know, the way that I have our kitchen set up, I mean, like, everything's organic and, you know, it's all vegan, and I'm constantly, you know, making sure that he has the best stuff inside of him, which I think has helped his mind tremendously, which I think will help his body.
Yeah, I want to just put it out there. I have colleagues who have specialized in building new cartilage, in building new bone tissue, and especially joints and yes, you have to go raw, but also very specific things like barley grass in combination with other things can be extremely helpful for rebuilding those areas. And I know that it works for joints and teeth and hair and all sorts of other things tissue-wise. So if this is a cartilage and connectivity issue, which is what, you know, knees and everything are, and I just went to an actual live conference. Yes, I'm putting it out there, where other aspects of those connectivity areas in the body were discussed. But I'll talk to you about that individually, that are really very enlightening as to what else we can do to recreate those lack of bondage, those lack of, the proper connection between tissues and bones and often we're actually talking about like a magnetic field that is where the gel is, where the cartilage is. And in the rib cage, I have not looked into it, but I will look into it, and I'll actually ask one of the experts I know about that. It's interesting. So you're saying the cartilage that holds the rib cage in place is detaching from the bones?
It did. It already did.
Mm-hmm.
Like it happened. He had a surgery for it last May.
Mm-hmm.
It's called slipping rib syndrome or slipped rib syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And so the procedure is like they do this test where they see if they can actually shift the whole rib cage, and it took a long time to find a doctor who could figure out how to do that, but that's what happened.
Yeah.
And so they went in and removed the areas that were just smacking around inside of him. But what they didn't do, and what they probably should have done, was to connect the parts that were left behind.
Yeah.
And so the only guy that we know in the whole country that can do that is in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So
I hear you. Yes.
Like Irish moss. Like, I don't know what else to do.
Yeah, no, there are ways to help the body to, of course, what has to happen is that, yes, you can temporarily maybe put something there to reconnect, like you can put a plastic joint into, or carbon actually is what's being used today a lot, into a body, and it can be relatively welcomed by the body. It will probably not, just like a breast implant, not be welcomed forever. It may just last for a while and then be rejected. But you can encourage the body to regrow almost any tissue. Well, we cannot cut off a finger and regrow that. That does not happen. But we can, as long as the outer shell for any kind of bodily part is still in place, we can regrow the inner connectivity. And that happens even in damaged nerve tissue, which is interesting. And I came across that very early in my life when my partner had slashed his hand in a glass, and doctors had told him that the nerves will never grow back together. But we found an acupuncturist, this was in Europe, and the acupuncturist said, oh, of course it can. We just need to get the energy flowing in those areas. And indeed, he got a lot of his sensitivities back, and not exactly full functioning, but totally enough to go through life like it didn't really matter. So that's just to say, and this I learned in my early 20s. So I'm just saying there are modalities outside of the Western medical establishment, or whatever you want to call it, that have been very successful in reconnecting tissues, reconnecting nerves, reconnecting bone structures, refirming bones that were brittle, etc. So I just want to give you hope that that can be done, but the modalities may not be the ones that your Mayo Clinic can give you.
Right. Yeah, he's been going to see an acupuncturist. He just started seeing him pretty regularly, and that seems to be helping with the back muscles that have atrophied to help protect his rib cage in the front.
Yes.
So I'm going to continue seeing him, which is really good.
Right. And then there are, like in every healing process, it's not just one thing. It's not just food. It's not just energetic flow. It's then also exercise. It's then breathing. It's then chemicals in the house. It's then, making sure that there isn't too much electromagnetic field interference, et cetera, just right. Awareness for a lot of different things, all of which we can look at, and I can certainly help you with. So I'm glad that we got an opportunity to talk about that too, because that seems to be the utmost priority at the moment, so that you can then get to helping your husband and so many other people to have those joyful event experiences again.
Yeah, I miss it. It was such a good, we were having such a good time.
Yeah, of course. And there's absolutely no reason why that cannot happen. It must happen because, again, like I was saying at the beginning, my main mission is to have as many people as humanly possible build their businesses so that they can share to thousands of people, and then those thousands of people, can exponentially spread the messages that we're promoting. And gourmet vegan food is, of course, also what I do. I just do the raw versions for the most part. But it is so important that we have joy in what we do. Doing anything for healing that seems to be deprivation, that seems to deprive us of the joy of flavor and of the joy of community, sitting together and sharing, of the joy of the visuals in front of us, right? When the food is on the table and it's visually beautiful. All of that exists the need for that exists in all cultures. And it's really interesting that I have not been in Asian countries, but I know that it is there too because I have plenty Asian friends. In all cultures around the globe, the culture around food is at the core of community, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm from, I'm of mixed ethnicity, but I was raised in a Puerto Rican household, and everything was centered. But the thing was, everything was centered around meat and lard and fried and cheese and that sort of thing. So when it turned out that my body wasn't able to handle that stuff, I guess I started getting sick in my late teens, early 20s. Suddenly I was nearly outcast from the family because culturally my eating, just something as simple as diet, was making me the black sheep of the family because it's such a food-centric culture.
Yeah. All cultures are food centric. Now, you then wised up to the fact that when you make your food just as beautiful and tasty and shareable as that traditional food, suddenly people are interested in,
oh yeah,
taste that.
Oh yeah, for sure. I've definitely, even on my father's side, who's of European descent, who was a steak and potatoes guy for his whole life, suddenly started sending me text messages about, well, I want to stop eating so much meat. What do you recommend? And I'm like, has hell frozen over suddenly? Because this is insane. This is insane. But it's because at my table, I won't cook any of that. And yes. So I'll just be like, listen, trust me, you're going to like it. It may not be the healthiest vegan thing in the world, but, shot of apple cider vinegar will help draw the toxins out, and just go with me. Just go with it, And it's definitely changed a lot of people's minds.
Yes. Beautiful and beautifully said. It's life evolves in all cultures around socializing with food, and all we need to do is keep the culture, just change the quality and the ingredients of the food. And often we can even make them look and taste very similar to everything else. Mm-hmm. I don't know whether you got the interview with the Iranian gentleman, the travels in Iran Vegan Travel, I think is his company.
I caught a little bit of it, and then I had to go be a caregiver, so I couldn't see the whole thing. And when the replay came along, I wasn't even able to access it. But I remember him.
Right. So that's just to say that all cultures can create the vegan versions of their traditional foods and explore those cultural avenues that will embrace everybody who favors and enjoys that culture. So the Puerto Rican or European or Chinese or African or Latin American, or American for that matter. I made a whole dinner once for a fancy restaurant called the Raw Junk Food Dinner. And
Cool.
it included, what did it have for appetizer? I forgot what the appetizers were. But then the main dish was hot dogs with the works and burgers and fries. Or burgers and fries. And then the dessert was Twinkies. And actually on Sunday, I have a workshop scheduled where we're making Twinkies. But I actually am not quite sure that I'm doing this Sunday after all, because I overburdened myself with all these workshops and webinars. So yeah, because the concept of a Twinkie is just a rolled up fluffy dough stuffed with white creamy stuff, right? And right. I made a chocolate Twinkie with a dough. Of course, everything I make is, again, organic and raw and plant-based. So I made this fluffy dough, dehydrated it a little bit, rolled it up, and stuffed it with this awesome coconut psyllium husk, thickened, sweet, fluffy filling. And it's a beautiful Twinkie. It's incredibly delicious.
That sounds amazing.
Right? So there you have it. You can have the culture, and the hot dogs are really a hit as well. They're a little bit expensive to make because the main ingredient is walnuts, and walnuts have gone through the roof. But again, I have a source for relatively inexpensive organic walnuts. And yeah, so we have these hot dogs with mashed potatoes and onion rings, I think, and gravy. And the gravy is a mushroom-based gravy, incredibly delicious. So yeah, and mashed potatoes, of course, are not made out of raw potatoes, but out of other things. I make mine out of celeriac and parsnip and cashews and maybe a little bit of cauliflower, but not too much, so that it's and zero water, so that it's just these smashed roots and nuts. So it gets very thick. You can only do it in a Vitamix or Blendtec, because you need to actually smash it. Incredibly delicious and thick and satisfying, like a no water or no milk added mashed potato or smashed potato. So yeah, the various little spices go in there to round out the flavor.
I'm going to remember all of this for when live events are safe again and I can hire you to do the catering, because this all sounds amazing.
We'll collaborate. We'll do it that way. We'll collaborate. Yes, absolutely. So, Maria, I would really encourage you to set up an individual call, a one-on-one call on my Calendly, or we can even decide on a time now.
Now it's going to be tough because I just found out that his surgery got approved, and I have no idea exactly when we're flying out or when we're coming back, what the recovery time is and all that. So like everything is like, it's crazy. Actually, I just realized I have a lot of deliveries I need to postpone for food, and I have a lot of stuff I have to do. But so I'm basically, until the end of the year, I'm going to be his assistant and nurse. So I really...
Right, but you will want to have some more of that information that I can share with you. I just don't want to go into the health part on this webinar. I can share with you to help him through the surgery and help him heal. So I would love for you to be able to access that information before you go in. So, if we can have a 30-minute call, I can make a little bit of a list of what I think you can do. That would make me feel like I did my duty sharing what I know, and will probably help you feel more equipped to get him through this and get him healing.
Cool. I guess, can we communicate via email so that I can speak to him, and then we'll figure out like when I'm actually available?
I did note down your name. I guess the email is in the registration, and we don't necessarily want to share it here because this is going to be rebroadcast at another time.
Oh, right.
So yeah, I will find it in your registration for this, and we'll communicate with you. And I think I'm going to close it out here unless there are other questions that you have with regard to the business building.
No, actually, other questions that came up for me were more about your history in performance, because I am also in that industry. So
wow,
characters that I was like, oh, she'd be really good for this like specific kind of character, yada yada. So that's another day. That's another conversation.
That is cool. So you have a part of you that is also an entertainer or an actor.
That's always been my main thing. I mean, I write music, and I was a sketch comedy writer for a lot of years. I had a residency at the New York Poets Cafe, like, all this, film and music and rock and roll. And I'm sitting next to a huge pile of index cards for a screenplay that I've been working on for a long time. And
yeah, of course, my professorial position comes from going through the MFA program at Columbia and doing 3 theses there in writing screenplays and directing and producing. So I have all of that under my belt as well, but I haven't done much with it because then I was at an age where I really, really wanted to have kids, and I had 2 big contracts for 2 feature film movies, and both of them fell apart in the financing. And then I said, okay, I want to have kids now. I want to have a regular income. That's when I went corporate and kind of what I was saying earlier, learned about the world. Right. So I was on that track, but I knew that my time was going to be up for where it's no longer really possible to have children, and I wasn't going to get old without having children. So that's where I went off that path, because it is such an incredibly fickle industry, right? You can be on top of everything one moment and, oh, who's that? What? No, I don't think so. The next day,
I think I wanted that when I was younger. Now I would be so much happier as a bit part cameo character actor kind of person, like not necessarily, your big Liz Taylor leading lady kind of person. I would much rather fly a little below the radar. But I've always been a writer, so that's where it all stems from. It's just
yeah. I had some amazing writing teachers at Columbia, and I think I wrote 3 full screenplays while at Columbia, so it was a lot. And that's how it got to those 2 contracts. But yeah, that's amazing. And I also have a colleague who coaches screenwriters. So that's another thing that you might want to look into for your, because sometimes we just, I was writing great screenplays when I went to class and had to show off what I had written. But when you don't have anybody to listen to your screenplays or read your screenplays, it is so much harder to stay focused and pull through.
Yeah, I'm pretty lucky. Like, I've got some really wonderful friends that I've made over the years, like working on their films and stuff, and they've just been so supportive. And I think it made me realize, because I would see people on set that were very needy, and I never wanted to be that kind of a performer, and I found myself gravitating a lot towards the crew and hanging out with the crew. And so I was really, really fortunate in that while being a performer, I wound up getting really tight with a lot of the people behind the scenes. And so I've had some wonderful, really great, long-lasting friendships built over the past, decade or so, with, different directors and assistant directors and, camera people.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's the way to do it. Yeah, it's interesting that you chose the word needy, but that's so true. It's the needing to be recognize needing to be, and that becomes such a,
it's draining for everyone.
yeah, almost like a pathology. That's the problem. Yeah.
Yeah. So I prefer to be supportive rather than needy.
Yeah.
Whatever serves the story the best is the most important thing, not necessarily what's going to serve my temporary popularity on set, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Beautiful. But I also think the vegan events are a very, very important thing. And of course, you can combine the two, you know.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I do. There are specific exercises that help deal with difficult emotions through scripted dialogues so that you're not performing, but you're able to deal with these very real situations that really can affect you emotionally very deeply, but it's in a safe environment. It's a controlled setting. It's not a real argument or a real discussion. It's all on paper. And those people that are reading those parts are, in a sense, doing it for the benefit of the people that are watching, so that everyone can hear those words being said out loud. And then afterwards, we discuss it and say, okay, well, what might this person have done differently in real life? And then when everybody leaves that exercise or leaves the room at the end of the event day, they have some tools in their box so that when they are in those difficult situations in real life, they can pause for a moment and be like, you know, there's a healthier, more compassionate and loving way to handle this moment. And that's really important to me, because I feel like you pop one person's balloon and then they start popping other people's balloons. But if you show somebody how to lift themselves up, they're more inclined to lift others up around them.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. That's so powerful. Yeah. But it is also such a basic truth that when we allow ourselves to go through these emotions, and that's one part I loved about acting, actually, and being in movies and being allowed, it's almost like sometimes we can go deeper into those emotions than we allowed ourselves in real life.
Oh, yeah, you're so right. You're so right. You're so right. I feel like there's this wonderful musician and performer, actor, Riz Ahmed, and he said something in a podcast that I just loved, which was that acting help, or maybe it was Judd Apatow. They're both wonderful, and I just think they're both fantastic. But it's just that writing helps deal with what's going on in the mind, but performing helps deal with what's going on in the heart. And so you get to exercise your emotions, which I just find so therapeutic and so true.
Yes. Yeah. And it's that ironic dichotomy, or that ironic juxtaposition of that sometimes you can be more true in the performance than you can be in your true life, in your real life.
Yes, ma'am. You nailed it. Absolutely. Absolutely. That is so true.
Yeah. Great conversation, Maria. I look forward to more. I will put out that email right away. And all of you other business builders who are getting to see this webinar at a different time than this live recording, please go back and listen over the system. Please write down your questions. We will answer all your questions, and we will connect with you and help you get to where you want to be in your business builder and in your physical health. So thank you for being here. Thank you for seeing this. Thank you for being part of a growing business community that does business differently, that actually does business as almost like a therapeutic event for humanity. Now I've never said it like that before, but it is kind of like that, ushering in a new era of how we care for each other and support each other in being and in expressing ourselves, in being authentic, in being the best we can be, and sharing that which we have to give to the world. Ciao, this has been your Business Builder webinar by Professor Johanna Sophia of Johanna's Raw Foods and Coaching. your super happy body coach and your SHB business builder. Ciao.